After years of devastating war, Syria's government has toppled. Rebel forces captured Damascus yesterday, causing President Bashar al-Assad to flee to Russia. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has the latest from Damascus.
It is ultimately how all dictators go. Jubilant crowds tore down a statue of the now former President Bashar al-Assad's father, the founder of a dynasty that ruled Syria with an iron fist for more than half a century. We saw the same scenes as pictures of the Assad family were defaced at the border crossing where we entered Syria this morning from neighboring Lebanon. We are now inside Syria. We just crossed the border, and you can see there are no controls anymore. The government is gone. There are rebels, gunmen on the street. The regime has collapsed, and you notice that the second you enter this country. The mood is celebratory and welcoming. People are proud of this new dawn and still in disbelief that Assad is really gone. As we drove to the capital, we passed boys on an abandoned government tank cheering Hurriya, Arabic for freedom. In the end, it was the army that sealed Assad's fate. Soldiers refused to fight. They faded away and ran as the rebels, led by Islamists, rolled into Damascus unopposed. The rebels' leader, once an al-Qaeda supporter and considered a terrorist by the U.S., is promising moderation and to work for all Syrians. He has ordered his forces to prevent looting and leave civilians unharmed. And so far, they appear to be doing that. The rebels' first priority appears to be breaking into Syrian prisons to free thousands of political prisoners kept in horrific conditions of torture and deprivation. Syrians are rummaging through Assad's empty palaces and seeing his lost life of privilege. A video claims to show Assad's fleet of luxury vehicles, sports cars, SUVs, and exotic collectibles. He won't be needing them in Russia. The Russian Foreign Ministry confirmed Assad and his family arrived in Moscow, given asylum for humanitarian reasons. Syria now has a new hope, new possibilities, and significant challenges as the map of the Middle East is being redrawn by the hour.
My God. Joining us now, former U.S. ambassador to Russia, now the director of the Institute for International Studies at Stanford, and an NBC News international affairs analyst, Michael McFaul. Retired four-star Army General Barry McCaffrey. He's an NBC News military analyst. NBC News national security analyst Clint Watts is here, and contributing editor for the Financial Times, Kim Ghattas. Jonathan Lemire is with us as well.
You know, Kim, you've been living in and studying, writing about, reporting on this region for so long, and you've got to be thinking along the lines of the Vladimir Lenin quote that, you know, there are decades when nothing happened, and then there are weeks when decades happen.
Everything happens.
This was shocking to us in the West. I'm wondering, for those who live in the Middle East and have seen a 54-year tyrannical reign dissolve in a week's time, what's the reaction there, and what are your insights?
Good morning, Joe. It was shocking for people who follow this closely as well, about how fast this happened, how smoothly it happened. There was, in the end, very little fighting. And the rebel troops from various, the rebel groups from various parts of Syria, the north, HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the Islamist group, the Kurds got involved from the south, the Druze, everybody moved in and created the pincer movement on Bashar al-Assad. And when it started just last week, it's not even decades happening in weeks, it's decades happening in days. When it started last week, Monday, and Aleppo fell, nobody anticipated that Bashar al-Assad would dissolve, that his regime would dissolve so quickly. Certainly a lot of us expected that he would put up a last stand in Damascus, but he didn't. The writing was, in a way, on the wall. It happened gradually and then very quickly. There is a confluence of events that made this happen, including the fact that he was ruling over an exhausted part of Syria, an exhausted army that did not want to fight anymore, did not want to pay more blood. The fact that Iran, his key patron and supporter, has been weakened and its vulnerabilities exposed over the last year since October 7th. And key as well is Hezbollah, the Shia militant group in Lebanon that fought with thousands of men in Syria to support Bashar al-Assad has found its own capabilities and its leadership mostly destroyed in Lebanon in this recent war with Israel. And finally, Russia. Russia's intervention in 2015 is what made it possible for Assad to survive what had been a long rebellion already by an uprising and rebel groups in Syria. And Russia is otherwise occupied. So there was a moment to seize by rebel groups and an understanding clearly by Bashar al-Assad himself and his allies that it was over.
General, of course, we've all heard that power abhors a vacuum. What do you make of the new vacuum that has been created in a matter of days, weeks in Syria? And what concerns you the most about it? What are the gravest dangers ahead?
Well, you know, it's professionally interesting to me to watch a major military regime dissolve, come apart, go from ice to water in an instant. So in this case, in 9 days, these rebel groups managed somehow to pull together Druze, Kurds, Islamists, all in a coalition to bring down the government. Obviously, as we all know, part of it was shattering Hezbollah fighters. The IDF got a ceasefire based on their tactical ferocity. Hamas has been largely destroyed. The Houthis have now pulled back in their aggression somewhat in the south. And Iran is now aware that the Israeli Air Force with F-35 aircraft and standoff weapons can go after their nuclear structure, after their leadership. And then finally, obviously, the Russians, Putin's way out over his skis now. His country's a mess. He's had massive casualties. He's going to try and hang on to the air base and naval base that they have in Syria, but nothing else is going to work for him. Underlying all this, though, we shouldn't forget was Assad was a monster. And that 53-year regime enslaved the Syrian people and destroyed the country economically. So it's good news. We'll see where it goes. But so far, we have reason to believe peace may be possible in a galactic way in the Middle East.
Well, let us hope for the Syrian people. You know, it's always been so interesting when I've spoken with people in the intel community that have worked and gone in and out of Damascus. They always talk about their love for the Syrian people and the kindness of the Syrian people. And I've heard this from one intel officer after another. They've always been surprised by the massive disconnect between the Syrian people and the brutal government that has run it. So let us hope for the Syrian people that things can get better. Professor McFaul, we can talk about the weakness of Assad, the weakness of Iran, but really it all goes back to the weakness of Russia. We have here the world's second strongest military that has been ravaged over the past few years by war in Ukraine. As the general said, undertaking massive casualties, even having to call in the North Koreans for support. Now economic woes with the ruble falling. And on top of that, their client state in the Middle East, which actually afforded them the opportunity to get into the Middle East for the first time since 1973, now gone. What's the impact for Vladimir Putin and Russia?
Well, first, I just want to underscore what a day of elation this is. Yesterday, anytime somebody like Assad falls, this was a brutal, barbaric dictator. And when people are already saying it's going to get worse, it's hard for me to imagine it'll get worse. Yeah. Second, I think about this day and this time with tragedy, too, because when I was in the government, when I was ambassador in Russia, working for President Obama, we tried to work with the Russians to bring about the very events we're looking at. We even talked about where Assad might go. And the fact that Putin decided not to go along with the international community and to double down on this guy and then bring his Air Force in, as Kim just said, in 2015, this is a decade of blood in Syria that is on Putin's hands. And therefore, third, this is a good day for anybody who's in opposition to Vladimir Putin, including first and foremost the Ukrainians, the Russian opposition. He looks weak. He doubled down on a dictator and he lost. And that is a powerful message, especially for the Ukrainians. But I hope for Mr. Maduro in Venezuela. I hope for Mr. Lukashenko in Belarus as well.